Long time no see, right? Total disclosure, this isn't actually what I eat in a week. This is more like what I've been eating in the last couple of weeks. Why? Because my meals are kind of here and there lately. But today I'm starting off with some tea. And this is actually the blend that I made in the food scraps video. So it's like a clove, cinnamon, orange peel situation. Oh, with black tea as well. Sweeten that with some agave. And that's how I start a cold morning. It's been a while since I've had a breakfast sandwich. I have to say I quite enjoy like a little tofu patty. So as usual, I'm gonna take a slab of extra firm tofu, and this time I just created kind of like a dry rub. So I'm doing this in lieu of making a marinade like I normally do with oil. There's already oil in the pan, so that's enough. Course, gotta add some bacon. And recently, when I say I haven't had a croissant in a hot minute, like I have been craving just like that buttery flakiness, but I have not been able to find a vegan croissant to save my life until I went to the bakery at Whole Foods recently. I picked up these and I am currently obsessed. And also, please don't cut towards your hand like this. Cut away from your body. I'm being a little cocky because I cook and eat for sport. So I'm basically a professional athlete at this point. So I'm gonna use that to make a little breakfast Sammie, and I'm putting arugula as the base. I should have put mayo, but I didn't have any on hand. And I also should have added tomatoes. Really needed some tomato to balance out, at least some of the onion. I never thought I'd ever say this, but yeah, I might have put just a few too many slices on there. So it needed some more veggies. Still delicious. Ate it in record time and currently craving another one. Then for dinner, I'm starting off with some of my homemade chicken stock. Again, this is in the food scraps video, so if you want that recipe, it's there. And I like to freeze my excess so that I always have broth on hand because it's only gonna keep for a few days in the refrigerator. And that I'm warming up to actually just marinate my chipotle peppers in. So I'm using dried peppers. You don't have to use chipotle. After you soak them, you can just slice them open and remove the seeds so that it's not as spicy. However, I clearly have a death wish and just chucked 4 whole peppers for 1 can of jackfruit. I'm gonna saute that a little bit with some salt to bring out the brine. And in the meantime, I'm gonna make my chipotle sauce by just blending those with all of the liquid and a little bit of apple cider vinegar. And I actually don't recommend using an immersion blender for this. Use a regular blender because it's gonna start off very watery, which means you're gonna get splatter. Then I'm gonna add that to the jackfruit. And I really had the nerve to add pepper to this as if the heat factor wasn't already on 10, but be better than me. Just say no. However, I am gonna add coconut aminos and some smoked paprika. You can also add some cumin. And after I saute that for a bit and really incorporate the sauce, instead of just using it like this, like you've seen me do in my jackfruit tacos, what I'm gonna do is transfer this to a baking tray with a little bit of salt, and we're going to bake this to dry it out even more. And this is what's really going to change the texture of your jackfruit. So if you are someone who personally finds it too mushy, you just need to remove the excess water, because remember, it comes in a brine and then we're also adding our own sauce. So this is really going to change the texture. And you just want to keep an eye on it. I'm going to show you guys how it should look later in the video. But first, I'm going to saute some peppers without onions. Who even am I right now? Don't worry, I actually added them later, so I just didn't get a shot of it. Your girl is okay. She would never. This is what you want your jackfruit to look like. And as you can see, the texture has totally changed, which actually makes it like more chewy. So highly recommend this step to anyone who feels like they don't normally enjoy jackfruit. In the last moment, I decided to go with a queso again. More heat, which is just totally unnecessary at this point. I ate it, it was delicious, but did I suffer? I'd be lying if I didn't say I wasn't in pain. And at this time, you're probably asking yourself, Arian, what happened to the peppers? And believe it or not, I didn't realize until I ate the entire thing. But don't worry, because I had it the next day with leftovers. And for those of you who are up on the current news, this is the first day that I am wearing my ring because the day prior, when I had the spiciest burrito bowl ever, is when I was proposed to. So my fiance, so weird. I can't call him my boyfriend anymore. But yeah, so my fiance just proposed to me in my living room. Living section is what I should say, in the studio space. Oh, but sorry, I'm actually forgetting to tell you about the food. Well, basically I wanted a panini. So here I'm just using some pesto. I have a recipe for that, which I will link down below. And then I'm using some heirloom tomatoes with some vegan cheese on this focaccia loaf. This is actually the same company that I get that sweet potato French bread from. So I decided to branch out and try something else. And since I don't have a panini press, I basically just put some heavy weights on it. Just don't be like me and use enamel because these retain heat very quickly and they are very hot. So please make sure that you use your oven mitts and be careful. You could totally just put another pan on top of this. In fact, cast iron, even better. And you guys know my standard grilled cheese procedure, so we need that moist heat to really melt down the cheese and make this ooey gooey and delicious. And then another random dish that I made whenever this was roasted potatoes. I was having a craving, as one does, because it's been a while since I've had French fries. So I boiled these little baby Yukon potatoes. And while that was going, I decided I needed some kind of sauce. So very unconventionally, I'm having this with mojo verde. I don't know why I thought this would be a good pairing, but normally I eat this on fried plantain, so I thought, why not potatoes? So for that, I put a ton of garlic. Feel free to use less than this. In fact, I would probably encourage it because if not, your breath gonna be humming. What I do is put it in the jar that I intend to store it in, and then I top it up with more oil. And then at some point, probably on a totally different day, I had a hot cocoa. But this was actually pre-gift guide, so it's not pre-mixed. Therefore, I'm sweetening it with a little bit of agave. I added some mint extract, and I topped it with not only vegan marshmallows, but whipped cream and fudge mint cookies. And the next day, I was actually feeling oatmeal for some reason. I know. I've actually really been enjoying it lately, I guess because it's just freaking cold and it's the best way to warm up in the afternoon. So here I'm starting off by sauteing some pears in a little bit of butter with a pinch of salt and agave. Adding in my oats and oat milk, but you can feel free to use any plant-based milk that you want to, or just water, because ain't nothing wrong with that. Of course, add a little bit of cinnamon and more sweetener if you want to, because that's what they say, that's your business. And what I'm adding here is tacos. You guys have seen me probably use this in like yogurt occasionally. I put it in smoothies sometimes. It's just a rice bran soluble, and what it does is it's just like a vitamin E supplement. Then for dinner at some point, I decided to make another Thai curry, but this time I'm actually using a green paste. Therefore, I just kind of grabbed random things in my refrigerator that were all green. So I think this was like a banana pepper. I've literally never bought it before, but it was pretty. So into my cart it went. Into that, I'm adding, of course, an onion. And as an extension of my food scraps video, I'm just showing you guys here how to start off with trying to be conscious of your waste. I think we're all kind of guilty of like cutting a little bit more than we really need to sometimes, right? So this is me showing you, start small and not cutting off these huge pieces. And like for the skin, you can also peel it back and kind of use that as an extra handle so that when you're dicing, you have more to grab onto and decrease the chances of cutting yourself. And also I'm showing you guys my hand positioning because you want to tuck the tips of your fingers in instead of holding them out flat. And what this does is it actually prevents the knife from going any further because it's butting up against your knuckles. So again, this is basically like all the same steps as the original video that I first put the Thai curry recipe in. The only difference is that I'm using stock instead of the homemade coconut milk. I'm still adding the coconut and I'm using some frozen cubes of coconut cream. And here I'm also adding protein because I have been eyeing pumfu in the supermarket for like quite some time. But as you guys know, I started off pretty weary with tofu in the first place. And sorry, this is tofu made from pumpkin. So that's what that is. And I recently saw Tabitha use this on her Instagram. So I was like, that's the push I needed. If it's Tabitha approved, I'm trying it. So my next trip to the market, I bought it and I agree, it's pretty damn good. So if you have a soy allergy or you just want to decrease your soy intake, I recommend. Even if it's cold, I still have a smoothie pretty much every day. This one was frozen passion fruit, jackfruit, dragon fruit, and I'm also adding some camu camu powder for extra vitamin C, sea moss gel, which you guys have seen me use on Insta stories, and some chlorella powder, because at this point I don't think I had any greens in my refrigerator. And I can't think of the name right now, but I'll make sure I put the one that I'm using down in the description box below. I'm having the rest of my curry with some avocado. And for dessert, oh my God. So I'm pretty sure I told you guys about my love of Ben & Jerry's mint chocolate chip ice cream before I went vegan. And even though they have a non-dairy version, it just does not compare. But when I tell you that this milkshake was everything I needed. In fact, this tasted like the mint cookie milkshake that I used to get from Nifty 50s. Legit, this is the best thing I've ever made. Started off with the Nanaimo vanilla ice cream, which was like ridiculously soft for no reason at all. So I added a little bit of ice and oh my God. I have to physically and mentally restrain myself from making this every single day. Oh, and also on Insta stories, you guys might have saw me at the farmer's market with my mom, in which case I bought some quince for the first time. Being completely new to these, I had no idea what to make from them. All I knew was that they are really hard in their raw state, so it's pretty much mandatory that you cook them. And the most common response that I got from you guys was that you love it as a jam. So that's exactly what I made. So because they're so hard, instead of dicing them by hand, I reverted to shredding them in my food processor. So they've oxidized. I threw in some water, sugar, and actually put in some yuzu juice because I found them at a market randomly, but feel free to substitute for just like lemon juice. And I just boiled that down to my desired consistency, and this made a lot. So I have like at least 22 ounces. And speaking of potato cravings, since I enjoyed the roasted potatoes that I had the other day, I decided to make smashed potatoes. I know some of you guys follow Sophia Rowe on Instagram, love her. And I saw her make these and I was like, yeah, I gotta try that. But I wanted to switch it up. So just like before you want to parboil, before you roast, but before you do, you just take the container and you press down to make them flat. Drizzle it with some olive oil, salt and pepper, and you can do kind of like a rosemary herby vibe. But I decided I wanted to make what I am calling Pachos. Wanted to serve these up with like some vegan queso, but I couldn't be bothered to make that, so I just threw on some guacamole, pickled red onions, and called it a night. However, I will definitely be making these again. Like, listen to this crunch. But this time I think I'm gonna do a loaded potato version. So if you guys want to see that, put a potato emoji in the comment section. Then with my leftover tofu, yes, it does contain a lot of water because I don't press it out first. I decided to make a tofu scramble. So this is like, you know, the vegan version of eggs, but I wanted to actually make, not an omelet, but I wanted to make a breakfast burrito. So I threw in some onions, as I do, and I made some pico de gallo out of a heirloom tomato. Threw in some vegan sausage, some pepper jack cheese, and this was the moment I knew I f***ed up. I knew before I even rolled it that like I was suspicious, but I had steamed it. I was trying to be skeptical. So go for the gluten, okay? Don't use like a cassava flour because you need your tortilla to have some give. So my burrito became a bowl. And in my mind, there's just nothing more comforting than pasta. So I decided to make some. And I forget what the name of this pasta is, but if I can find it, I'll put it down in the description box. Unlike fettuccine, it's not smooth. It has like little ridges in it, so it really grabs onto the sauce that you're using. I wanted to use up the rest of my pesto, and you know how I feel about getting my greens in, so I added some baby kale, sauteed it up, and that was dinner. And if you guys need a pesto recipe, again, I used this in a previous video where I made this exact dish, but with rigatoni and asparagus. So be sure to check that out. And that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you next week. Bye.